The story of Passover teaches us many lessons about our personal and communal freedom. And in the 21st century, the story of Passover teaches us something that we can apply to our own lives. How can we be free? Truly and deeply free. A freedom which is both personal and mental, spiritual and physical. How can we learn to be free? Because in the Passover Seder, in the Haggadah, it says we have to feel like and have to re-experience the exodus of Egypt as though we personally left Egypt. Now, in the 21st century, yes, we're free compared to being slaves, but we're all enslaved in a culture of consumerism and of greed. And unless we are multimillionaires, we're not free. And even when we are multimillionaires, we're not necessarily spiritually free or mentally free or free as human beings to be all that we are meant to be. So freedom is a subjective term. And so what I'd like to invite you to discover is true, deep, real, genuine freedom. Freedom which is as the exodus of Egypt. Now, the story of Egypt can teach us how, in the 21st century, how we can, as individuals and collectively, truly discover freedom, truly experience this notion of what it means to be free people. Now, the Egyptian culture has very similar parallels to our own, but that's not what I'm going to discuss right now. What I'm interested in is how this tribe, this slave tribe, became free, and what elements we can learn from that to apply to our own lives, so that we too can taste freedom. And freedom doesn't taste like matzah or charoset. Freedom doesn't taste bitter. Freedom is sweet. It's liberating. It's unbounded. So, what elements am I talking about that this Hebrew tribe, slave tribe in Egypt, learnt about? Moses, a Hebrew Egyptian prince, came to them and said, and they asked who sent him, and he said, Ehyeh asher ehyeh sent me. I am that which I am, or I am becoming that which I am becoming. That's what sent me here. Now, the Jewish people, the Hebrew Bible, talks about God not as some bearded bloke in clouds that descended to Egypt and freed the Hebrew slaves. But Judaism talks about God as that which is and is becoming. We talk about the one God, the oneness of all reality, that totality and more of all existence. The oneness is God. And God speaks to Moses and says, go free these people because they are suffering. And he does, and he frees them. Now he frees them culturally from the limitations of that particular culture. He tells them to take the god of Egypt and slaughter it, and put its blood on the doorposts. Let everybody know, keep it outside, keep that goat or sheep, whatever it is, keep it outside, and when they ask you, what are you doing with our God? You say, I'm going to kill it, and then I'm going to leave Egypt. I'm going to be free. So there is a process of cultural revolution, of a disowning of the prevalent culture. There is a process of freedom, of emancipation of this slave tribe into freedom. And the ultimate revelation of God is on Mount Sinai, after they go through the Red Sea and all those miracles happen. But in Egypt there are untold miracles that take place. And this is mainly because Moses is communicating something about the nature of God which frees, both individually and collectively, the Jewish people from the limitations, not just the mental limitations, but the spiritual and mainly, and most importantly, the physical limitations of Egypt. They become actually free. They can leave prison. The walls of their prisons dissolve, and their captors want them to go. They give them all of their wealth, and they say, go worship your God in the desert. So what can we learn in the 21st century? How can we learn to be truly free? How can we truly identify, as we're meant to, with leaving Egypt, as though I left Egypt? How can we leave our own Egypts? And the answer is in the one who took us out of Egypt. And I'm not talking about Moses. I'm talking about God. Now let's put aside your own bias and our childlike cultural notions of God as some bearded guy in the sky. That's not the Jewish God. The Jewish God is echad, is one. Okay? And when we are aware of the one, things start to happen. We start to experience personal freedom, spiritual freedom, when we become aware of the absolute unity and oneness of all existence, and we dissolve ourselves, and we let go of our pain and our suffering and our sense of separateness and our limitations. When we let go of all of that and we embrace the oneness, the underlying unity of the entire universe, and we let go of our ego, and we let go of our sense of separate self, and we embrace the fact that all is one, that is the start of true freedom. And that's the message of Passover. That is to experience that which is Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, to experience the oneness of all existence. And when we let go of ourselves, we embrace the one, we can then truly be free. We then are truly free to be ourselves and to leave behind all limitations. And this works not just conceptually, but also in actuality. Just like the Jews actually left Egypt, physically left Egypt, so too we can, when we embrace the oneness of all existence, our physical and spiritual, but mainly our physical situation changes so that we are freed by God, by the one, to be completely, truly, utterly free. And when you let go of yourself and you let go of your suffering and you embrace the oneness of all existence, then miracles happen. And I implore you to realize the absolute oneness of all existence. And to realize that is to be aware of God. Be aware of the underlying unity of all existence. And when you become aware of that, you become aware of that which is and that which is becoming. And you disregard and let go your own personal sense of separateness, then miracles happen. And more than the miracles in Egypt. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, the King Mashiach, told us that we have entered the Messianic era. Which means that each of us is actually able to experience profound and true redemption in our lives if we choose. If we choose to realize that the true and complete redemption has already taken place in some shape or form, then we can embrace all that we are. We can embrace the oneness of God